So I'm just speaking from personal experience. Early on when I was IGLing, I did way too much like variety, where I wanted to get like every type of map control take, every type of default. I think that was a mistake. Ideally, you want to have one default, really flush it out, and have protocols throughout the whole default, set finishes mid round, late round, the start of the round of that default. For me at least, I like to put a flow chart. I never really went strictly by the flow chart, but just helped me like visualize and understand the default better. Here, I'll show you kind of how I was doing defaults for a bit. So you can see nuke right here. I don't want to show the specifics. Inferno, you can see Inferno. Fuck it, I'll show it. Who cares? This is Inferno. This map's probably getting taken out anyways. So this is how I was approaching defaults for a while. I never had this on my second monitor while playing. This is more for like out of the game, for understanding the map better, just for myself, right? Here's the guide. This was the key. White was just a generic step of the default. Blue was a protocol. Yellow was a deviation, which means like I could just change it just because I want to change it, Green was the default itself. The other thing I had too was like a secondary default. So like the main default was the green one, which like played off the main map control of the map. So it's like, okay, the main map control is obviously banana, but there's like some other secondary things that we can condition as well. So it's like stuff towards A. So the secondary default would be apps control. How are we, conditioning apps? Or on overpass, the main default would be like, I don't know, bath and con control. And the secondary default would be like from the water player, whatever he's been doing towards water or monster. He's conditioning his own things. And this is like for that player to call. He's like, okay, I've been taking apps control. Pace change, we can do a different type of apps take. Or pace change, we can do a heavy apps take. Or, pace change, we can pop apps or something, right? That's the secondary default. That solo lurk has his own playbook that he can play off of. This can still happen no matter what's happening with the main default. It's just the secondary default. Orange was conditioning whatever we've been conditioning, and then purple is like cashing out of the conditioning. So it's like we've been conditioning fast brackets. Okay, we could fake fast brackets into a B pop, in which you get a red. A red was a finisher, how to finish the map. Green arrow indicates main line. Blue arrow indicates main line of a deviation. So like if something deviates, this is the new main line. So it's like the main line is normally we play off of Andrew's information brackets, but common 3B start. Okay, we're doing a fast brackets instead. The new main line of a fast brackets is take brackets. CTs leave 2 banana, common. If known info, we have all these other ways to finish the map. If CTs leave 1 banana after taking brackets, we could plow B. They leave 2, we take shocks control. Off of shocks control, we could, fake shocks hit A. We could B rep, we can R trap A. Does that make sense? This was like an example of one of the defaults. This is probably like the most fleshed out one I've done. Obviously, I had more things I would add on to it. This is something I was just working on my own time just to help understand the map better. You don't have to do this with every map. You kind of, as an IGL, you'll pick up on this stuff internally, and you'll just have like a natural feel for these things. But it's pretty, I found it really helpful to like actually write it out. This helped me find protocols to like actually establish that I didn't realize that we should have had established. But you can do something along the lines of this if you want to use a flow chart, or you can just use this concept of, main lines and deviations and protocols on your own internal flow chart for IGLing. What's Shock's position? Sorry, not from, that's like the arch. Shocks is like the arch side. This was like a big thing I'd always do. So it's like, if we got banana control, I always like to go a step further than brackets, and I'd always like to take actual shocks control, because there's so many things you can do with this conditioning of shocks. You can manipulate the moto player really easily with the shock smoke. So like, right, you can throw the shock smoke, and then you have B and arch control, and then you just wrap B, right? You just wrap B with 3 players from CT, and then you have a 3-2B split. And now the next time it comes around, you throw the shock smoke. The moto player's like, oh, last time they were at B, I'm not letting that happen again. You can now throw this as a T, throw the shock smoke, and then all 5 of you guys run up and just hit up wagon, and you pull the moto rotate off. And you don't even need a smoke moto because the rotate's not even here. He's over in CT, worried about the B wrap. Or, you keep on throwing this and wrapping B. Bro, do you want to get better at CS? I stream every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and all I do is answer questions on stream. Like, I literally just do tips and tricks the whole time. I'm an open book. Come join the stream. I'll teach you. I got nothing to hide, bro. Okay, that's all. Bye. Or, you keep on throwing this and wrapping B. You can throw this again, and then 5 of you guys apps pop. And you can just throw the shock smoke without throwing a moto smoke, because, again, you pull the rotate off. Or you can just throw this and then just take arch control, and then you can mid round off of this. You could throw this smoke on the fly, smoke library on the fly too, and then just wrap A. Like, this was a big thing I like to do with our defaults, was taking shocks, because you asked the position, but hopefully that makes sense of like how it looked in the flow chart, what it actually looks like in game. And obviously you would have other defaults, right? This was all off of the 4-pack A default, right? We had just a pack A default. There's a split default that I never got into making, right? If the CTs are passive, you have a whole different default with its own different deviations, main lines, you know, secondary lines, protocols, finishers, based off this one default. Because a phase 3 finisher on a pack A default of, you know, full exec B is gonna be way different than a full exec B on a split default that you start with, because you might have less util on this default. You might have more time on this default. This one, you might have less time because you're packed up the whole time. So like your finishers and protocols should be different depending on how you're starting the default. When people talk about like, oh, you know, Fnatic really dictated the pace, they showed a whole different face on this overpass. They showed a whole different side of themselves on this T side overpass. They probably played a whole different default with a whole different line and all these different variations and finishers that they never played before. And you can figure out which default to run if you have prep work on a team. If I'm playing against a team I don't know, most of the time we're going based off Andrew's information banana, right? Are they taking it? Are they not? This is against a team that we don't know. But if I do research on a team and I see these guys always start 3B, boom, I could start the game off instantly with fast brackets. And now we're playing off of the conditioning from this protocol over here after taking fast brackets over and over and over again, because we already have reads, because we did research. So like you should have a default for like against a team that you just don't have any reads on or any research. And then, you know, you have other defaults that you can even switch to a different default mid game if you realize, you know, the 4-pack A is not working because these guys are really passive and we're taking too long. So we should split up. Boom, we're switching to split default, 6 rounds into our T half, and you can start seeing success that way. And you start with this whole different line and all these different conditionings and variations and finishers. Does that make sense? This is just an example. I'm not scared to show this default because Inferno's probably getting removed. Fuck! But yeah, if people want to copy this, they can copy this. Yeah, it is just like chess, where you have main lines of chess, like, oh, I always play the Sicilian defense. Okay, we're doing bishop, blah, 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 blah. And he responds this way. Okay, that I respond. And you have like a main line of a chess line. It's the same thing with defaults, bro. And then obviously with Counter-Strike, it's not exactly like chess because someone could just throw a wrench in your default and all the protocols you have and just get a 4K or something, or a 2K. And it just fucks up your defaults. And then you have to mid-round it. And that's why it's like, it's good to have this as a foundation, but it should not be like the only way you play. The glue between every protocol that like takes you from one step to the next should be the players and just like their intuition, you know, their own skill. You should not be afraid to deviate off a default for a spontaneous call if it's the right call to make. This is just a general guideline, you know, and that freedom that a lot of players want is found by jumping off of this guideline. This is like one of the last talks we had with our team before we ended up splitting up, but one of the players really wanted to have a lot more individual freedom because I was going kind of crazy with these diagrams of our defaults, you know. And I was trying to tell him, it's like, dude, the freedom that you want to have can only be achieved by you advocating it from within this default. Like it's not one extreme versus the other of like, oh, freedom versus no freedom and just protocols. Ideally, it should just be a foundation of protocols, and then you can deviate off of those based off a player's own intuition. He can just make a call if he wants to. Fuck it, dude, I'm peeking mini. Fuck it, dude, I'm peeking arch side if he has a good read. The freedom that you want if you're playing a style like this is found from like self-advocation from your players, if that makes sense. So it's like, don't look at this and take it to the extreme of like, oh, we always need to follow this every round. Ideally, you want to follow this like perfectly if it's like something new to you. But once you get it ingrained, bro, don't be afraid to jump off of the default, jump off the protocols. And you know, if you do that enough, you might find out it's like, oh, we can actually just make that a protocol. If this happens, then we do this, because usually your intuition is right if you're smart enough for the game, and then you can just make that into its own protocol. And you can have players even within this. You can have like player authority where it's like, if Josh says he was peeking this, then this happens. And you know, you can have like individual player authorities programmed within this default if you really want to go crazy like that. Oh, so that's the other thing I want to say too with the default. So it's like with the defaults, like you don't want to be calling spontaneous strats. I said this before, but like at high level CS, every team has their protocols down to a really high level. So if you call random things, you're just playing into protocols. And the whole point of having defaults with conditioning and cashing out of conditioning is that you're setting up a finisher. Fast brackets, fast brackets, fast brackets, fake fast brackets, boom, we're popping B. Fake fast brackets, boom, we're apps popping. It's like boxing where, you know, you jab the body, jab the body, jab the body. You know, next time you fake jab the body, the guy's gonna, you know, cover his body because he's worried about getting jabbed there. And you come in with a front left hook and his guard's exposed. It's the same thing with high level CS, bro. Teams at a high level, their protocols are so good that if you just call random things, right? Oh, this round we're gonna do wag exec. Oh, this round we're gonna do fake A to B rep. Their protocols are going to counter it. You have to set up for this fake A to B rep. And the way you set this up is with these defaults by conditioning. You condition these things and you set up these finishers. That's why it's really important to have a foundation of a default. And also it keeps your whole team on the same page. They know what's going on. It reduces comms, right? You don't have to say, oh, go back and retake banana every round. right? They just know what to do already if blank happens. It saves comms, it reduces comms, it gets everyone on the same page. It gives you a foundation to jump off of for player freedoms if you have this all set up, and it sets up finishers as well. It's really important to have a flushed out default. And this is a mistake I made too. I said earlier with IGLing is that I had like 6 different defaults right off the bat, and none of them were flushed out. Start off with one, really nail it, and then start off with another, and then really like flush that one out too. And now you have different ways to play against the map against different types of teams. Hopefully that helps.